She told me she was pregnant. I was in shock, but happy. She said, "Don't worry, it's not yours. I just needed to see if you'd be supportive." I sat there for a minute, then got up. She laughed, until she got an email from my lawyer. "Before we start, I just want to say thank you for being here. It means the world. But take a look at this. Only 8% of people watching are subscribed. If you enjoy these stories and want to support more of them, just one click makes a huge difference." There's cold, and then there's whatever my wife Helena did to me last month. The kind of cold that makes you question every moment of your 5-year relationship, every smile, every "I love you," every promise. For context, Helena and I met in law school. I specialized in intellectual property. She went into family law. We were the power couple of our class, both on law review, both landing decent jobs at mid-sized firms after graduation. We got married 3 years ago, bought a house in the suburbs, the whole 9 yards. The only thing missing was kids. Helena had always been ambivalent about children. I wanted them eventually, but wasn't in a rush. We agreed to revisit the conversation after we both made partner. That timeline was derailed last year when my father was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Dad fought hard, but his prognosis was grim from the start. Those 9 months changed me. Watching someone you love slowly fade away, having those deep conversations about life and regrets, it shifts your perspective. One of the last coherent things my father said to me was that his only real regret was working so much that he missed parts of my childhood. "Don't make that mistake," he told me. "When you have kids, be present. Nothing else matters in the end." After he passed, I started reconsidering my priorities. The partner track suddenly seemed less important. Helena was supportive through the funeral, the grief, all of it. At least, I thought she was. We had several honest conversations about potentially starting a family sooner rather than later. She seemed to be warming up to the idea. Then came that Tuesday night. I got home from work to find Helena sitting at our kitchen table looking serious. "We need to talk," she said. My heart immediately raced. In lawyer households, those words carry extra weight. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down my briefcase. "I'm pregnant." Time stopped. My first reaction was shock, followed immediately by a wave of happiness. My dad's words echoed in my head. I could almost feel him smiling down. Wow, that's amazing," I stammered, moving toward her. "I know we were just starting to talk about it, but Don't worry," she cut me off, her expression unchanged. "It's not yours. I just needed to see if you'd be supportive." I stopped cold. "What?" "I'm not actually pregnant," she explained, her tone clinical. "I wanted to test your reaction. You've been talking about kids so much lately, and I needed to know if you're really ready." I stood there, trying to process what was happening. A test. She had set up an elaborate emotional test, using the one thing she knew mattered deeply to me, especially after my father's death. So this was, what? Some kind of twisted experiment? I asked, my voice barely controlled. She shrugged. "I needed to know where your head was at. You passed, by the way. You were very supportive." I sat there for a minute, completely silent. My mind wasn't blank. It was racing through every moment of our relationship, recategorizing memories, seeing patterns I'd ignored. This wasn't the first test she'd subjected me to over the years. It was just the cruelest. Without a word, I stood up and walked to the door. "Where are you going?" she called after me, sounding annoyed. "Out." "Don't be so sensitive," she laughed. "It was just a hypothetical scenario." I didn't respond. Just closed the door behind me and drove to a hotel. That night, I didn't call or text, despite her increasingly frantic messages. I was too busy making arrangements. You see, there's something important about me that matters to this story. I'm methodical. I don't make decisions in anger. When faced with a problem, I research, I plan, and then I execute. By morning, I had a clear picture of what needed to happen. I spent the day working remotely from the hotel, making calls during my lunch break. I returned home that evening, acting subdued but not confrontational. "Finally," Helena exclaimed when I walked in. "You can't just disappear like that. I've been worried sick." "Sorry," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I needed time to think." "About what?" she demanded. "It was just a test. Most people would laugh it off." "Most people don't use their partner's dead father and deepest desires as manipulation tactics," I replied quietly. Her face flushed. "That's not fair. I was just trying to." I know exactly what you were trying to do, I interrupted. And we both know this isn't the first time. Remember when you accidentally texted me that you were having drinks with your ex to see if I'd get jealous? Or when you pretended to lose your job to see if I'd support you financially? She looked away. Those were different. Were they? Or is this just your pattern? For the next week, I was the model of civility. I went to work, came home, made polite conversation. Helena seemed to think the storm had passed. She even joked about the pregnancy test incident with a friend over the phone, loud enough for me to hear. Testing me yet again, seeing if I'd react. I didn't. I was waiting. Exactly 10 days after the incident, Helena received an email from my lawyer while she was at work. I know the precise moment she opened it because she called me immediately, her voice shrill with panic. What the hell is this? I believe the document is self-explanatory, I replied calmly. Divorce papers? Because of one stupid joke? Not just divorce papers, I corrected her. If you read further, you'll find a separate document detailing the dissolution of our business partnership. This requires explanation. 2 years ago, Helena and I had used some inheritance money from my grandmother to purchase a small office building near downtown. The idea was simple: invest in commercial real estate, use one office for a side consulting business we'd discussed starting together, and rent out the rest for passive income. The building was officially owned by an LLC we'd created together, though I had contributed 70% of the capital. You can't do this, she sputtered. We co-own that property. Check Section 3.2 of our operating agreement, I suggested. In case of irreconcilable differences resulting in dissolution of personal partnership, either member may buy out the other at market value. That's our retirement plan. Her voice was rising now. You can't just... I'm exercising my right to buy your share at current market value, plus 10% for inconvenience, I explained. The funds will be held in escrow pending the divorce settlement. My evaluation suggests your share is worth approximately $127,000. You'll get every penny. This is insane, she hissed. All because you can't take a joke? It wasn't a joke, Helena. It was a test. And you know what? You failed. I hung up before she could respond. What followed was a hurricane of calls, texts, and emails, not just from Helena, but from her parents, her sister, even mutual friends. I let most go to voicemail, responding only with simple, factual texts. Helena came home that evening in a fury I'd never witnessed before. She found me calmly packing some clothes in the bedroom. You think you can just throw away 5 years over nothing? She demanded, blocking the doorway. Not nothing, I corrected her. Over pattern recognition. What are you talking about? I sat on the edge of the bed. After I left that night, I started documenting every test you've subjected me to over the years. There were 27 that I could recall, ranging from mild to severe. 27 times you deliberately manipulated situations to provoke specific reactions from me. Her expression faltered slightly. I also went through our text history, I continued. Fascinating how often you manufacture crises right before important events in my life. My bar exam, my father's funeral, the Thompson case. Each time, you created drama that forced me to prove my commitment to you instead of focusing on my own needs. That's ridiculous, she scoffed. You're making connections that don't exist. I shrugged. Maybe, but the pregnancy test crossed a line I can't come back from. Using my grief over my father and my desire for children as manipulation tools showed me exactly who you are. It was one mistake, she shouted. No, I said quietly. It was the mistake that made me see the pattern. As I continued packing, she switched tactics, tears replacing anger. She apologized profusely, promised therapy, begged for another chance. When that didn't work, she threatened to fight the divorce, to tell everyone I was emotionally abusive, to ruin my reputation at the firm. I simply nodded and continued packing. What about the house? She finally asked, voice small. It's yours, I replied. I've already spoken to the bank about removing my name from the mortgage. I'll continue to pay my half until the divorce is finalized, after which you can decide whether to sell or refinance on your own. This caught her off guard. You're giving me the house? I'm giving you exactly what you're legally entitled to. Nothing more, nothing less. The house has $180,000 in equity. Your half is $90,000. I'm letting you keep my half in exchange for a clean break on everything else. She stared at me, confusion replacing anger. I don't understand. You're walking away from $90,000? I'm purchasing freedom from manipulation at what I consider a reasonable price, I explained. And before you get any ideas, the agreement my lawyer sent includes a non-disparagement clause. You say anything untrue about me to colleagues or clients, you lose the house completely. That weekend, I moved into a furnished apartment downtown. The divorce proceeded with surprising efficiency, given our legal backgrounds. Within 3 months, everything was Helena'sed. The property was transferred, the house was signed over, accounts were divided. Throughout this process, Helena cycled through multiple strategies, pleading, accusing, bargaining, threatening, but I remained consistently calm and fair. I never raised my voice, never called her names, never tried to take more than was right. I simply extracted myself from her life with surgical precision. The most unexpected consequence came 2 months after I moved out. I received a text from Helena's sister Jane, who had initially been one of my most vocal critics. I owe you an apology, she wrote. Helena just pulled the same pregnancy test on her new boyfriend. When I called her out, she completely denied ever doing it to you. Classic Helena. I'm sorry, I didn't believe you. I didn't respond, but I saved the text. Last week, I ran into Helena at a bar association event. She was with a colleague from her firm, laughing loudly, clearly trying to show me she was doing fine. I nodded politely and continued my conversation. 10 minutes later, she approached me at the bar. You know, you could have just talked to me instead of blowing up our lives, she said, her voice tight. I looked at her for a moment. Would you have listened? She didn't answer. For what it's worth, I added, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. That's it? She asked incredulously. 5 years and that's all you have to say? I paid for my drink and turned to leave, then paused. Actually, there is one more thing. I've been seeing a therapist to understand why I tolerated those tests for so long. Turns out I have some work to do too. As I walked away, she called after me. So this was all just some elaborate revenge because I hurt your feelings? I stopped and looked back at her. No, Helena, this wasn't a test, and it wasn't revenge. It was a boundary. I haven't heard from her since. Some people have called my response extreme. Maybe it was. But there's a clarity that comes with walking away from someone who views your deepest vulnerabilities as ammunition. The pregnancy test wasn't just cruel. It was rev-Helening. It showed me that the person I'd built my life around saw my pain as a tool for manipulation. The email from my lawyer wasn't meant to punish her. It was meant to free me. And it did. Update. It's been 6 months since the divorce was Helena'sed, and I've received several questions about how things worked out legally, so I'll clarify a few points. 1. Despite both being lawyers, we each hired independent counsel for the divorce. I worked with my firm's partner, who specializes in family law, while Helena hired someone from a competing firm to avoid any potential conflicts of interest. 2. Regarding our possessions, we had a fairly straightforward division. I took only personal items and my home office furniture. Helena kept virtually everything else, which Helen and I deemed with my goal of a clean break. The furnished apartment I moved to simplified this process considerably. 3. For those asking about the mortgage, as expected, Helena did eventually refinance the house solely in her name after the divorce was Helena'sed. I continued making my half of the payments for the 3 months during divorce proceedings as agreed. 4. As for the office building LLC, the buyout was completed through proper legal channels with business valuations from 2 independent assessors to establish fair market value. The additional 10% I offered was documented as a settlement incentive rather than part of the property's value itself. Some have suggested I was too generous in the settlement, perhaps. But I measured success not by what I kept, but by how completely I removed manipulation from my life. By that metric, every dollar was well spent.